First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Sergeant Rick Alexander, spelled Rickalexander, badge number 1288. All right, so we're going to give a quick recap of the incident that occurred last night. Incident number is 22H20374. I spoke with some of you guys last night. Last night, July 2nd, approximately 6:45 p.m., officers were dispatched to reports of a shooting in the 5700 block of Diamond Oaks Drive. Before the arrival of our officers, the shooter shot and killed 33-year-old Colin Davis, a male, and 32-year-old Amber Tsai, spelled T-S-A-I. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. Additionally, the shooter shot at and injured an elderly female neighbor who reported the shooting to dispatch. She is still at a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. She was expected to have some type of surgery this morning. The shooter has been identified as 28-year-old Edward Freeman, spelled F-R-E-Y-M-A-N, and this is the only time we are going to mention his name. He doesn't deserve any recognition. We'll refer to him as the suspect or the shooter from this point forward. Upon approach to the residence, officers were immediately met with gunfire, which resulted in the injury of 3 of our officers. Despite being injured, our responding officers courageously returned fire, which likely prevented further injury or loss of life. At some point after the exchange of gunfire, the shooter fled the residence on foot, armed with a rifle and a handgun. He later took his own life in the 3900 block of Golden Oaks. This time I'm going to mention the names of our 3 officers that were injured last night. We have Corporal Zach Tabler, 7 years of service. Officer Tim Barton, 6 years of service. Officer Jose Avila, with 5 years of service. At the conclusion of this briefing, we're going to take a few questions. We're also going to show a video that'll probably answer a lot of your questions and paint a picture of this horrific incident. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Chief of Police, Cody Phillips.
Afternoon, my name is Cody Phillips. I'm Police Chief in Haltom City, CODYPHILLIPS. I want to first begin by expressing our condolences and prayers for comfort for the families impacted by the senseless act of violence. Yesterday, as you all know, we suffered a horrific tragedy that left 2 citizens dead, 1 citizen injured, as well as 3 officers injured. The 3 officers that Sergeant Alexander mentioned a minute ago were injured were Corporal Zachary Tabler, who was recently promoted to corporal with Haltom City, has been with the department since 2015. Corporal Tabler sustained gunshot wounds to the leg, arm, hand. He was then transported by a Richland Hills police vehicle to a local hospital. Corporal Tabler has undergone surgery this morning for his injuries and is currently still in the hospital. Officer Timothy Barton has also been with the Haltom City Police Department since 2015. Officer Barton sustained gunshot wounds to the leg and was transported by ambulance to a local hospital where he was treated and released early this morning. Officer Jose Avila has been with the Haltom City Police Department since 2018. Officer Avila sustained gunshot wound to both legs and was transported by the same Richland Hills police vehicle that transported Corporal Tabler to the hospital. Officer Avila is still waiting for surgery. Through all this, we had numerous other agencies that responded to assist us, and I want to make sure that I extend a thank you to all those organizations that came to assist us any way we needed. The FBI, ATF, United States Marshal's Office, Texas Department of Public Safety, Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, Tarrant County Constable's Office, Fort Worth PD, Grapevine PD, Mansfield PD, Euless PD, Bedford PD, Hearst PD, MedStar, Watauga Fire Department, North Richland Hills Fire Department, Haltom City Citizens Emergency Response Team, also known as CERT, and to all those other agencies that sent representatives to the local hospitals to show support for our injured officers. I also want to acknowledge our shared services law enforcement agencies of Richland Hills, North Richland Hills, and Watauga, as well as our own Haltom City Fire Department for their quick and decisive actions to assist us in the care of our injured officers, as well as helping us navigate through this complex incident. I also want to extend a special thank you to the outpouring of support from our local community, as well as community across the nation. We ask for your continued prayers for comfort and recovery for the injured civilians and as well as the officers. We also ask for your patience as the investigation continues and as information is verified and available. Once we get that available information, we'll release it to you all through our Public Information Officer, Sergeant Alexander. I'd now like to introduce our City Manager, Rex Phelps.
As Chief said, I'm Rex Phelps, the City Manager of Haltom City. That's last name is Phelps. I just got a quick statement. It's really on behalf of our staff. I'm here to echo that our hearts and prayers go out to all the victims of this event. You know, we are a small city of just under 50,000 people, and we have approximately 300 employees, so that we inherently know each other because we work very closely with each other and with our citizens. Our officers' actions were courageous and heroic as they engaged the suspect who ambushed them as they arrived on the scene. Their training and experience was evident. You know, it's times like this that makes us understand that although law enforcement officers cannot prevent or stop all chaos, they are the ones that stop chaos from taking over all things. We just want to say God bless our first responders, and God bless our community, and I think Dr. Armstrong, our mayor, has a short statement as well.
Thank you. Our city manager, he the former police chief. So I, 32-year law enforcement officer as well. We on the street with him since the shooting happened yesterday. That's why I'm not dressed up like, look like a man, but we are working. Our society are not the same anymore. They're not a fist fight, anymore. Anytime something happens, when they get upset, they use rifle. AK-47 and AR-15 is a weapon of choice. So, what can we do? At this time, I don't have that answer. After you watch the video and you already heard all the our chief of police, sergeant, and city manager, only one thing. I am represent the city council and all the citizens of Haltom City. We are here, united, and we will pray for the officer plus the victim in this case. And I hope for them to fast recovery. And remember one thing, respect, love, and socialize with your community, neighbor, important to prevent something like this. And thank you for our professionalism from our police department to stop the suspect for killing more people. And I also thank you all law enforcement agency from state, county, and local fire department, and all the people who work for ambulance, and especially I received numerous messages from all the mayor, everyone pray for the victim. Thank you very much.
Do y'all have any questions before we show the video?
So do you have any indication as to what started all this?
We do not. The Texas Rangers are conducting an investigation since it was an officer-involved shooting. They'll work through the investigation and be able to determine that cause.
Do you know the relationship between any of the three people involved?
All we know is that they know each other. We don't know what their relationship was at this time.
Do we know who was two victims killed? Who was shot first? The man outside or the woman inside?
We don't know that yet. The medical examiner, after the autopsy, will be able to determine the time of death and maybe establish a timeline for that.
Do you know if the elderly neighbor, was she shot after the people were killed? Do you have a sequence?
So we don't know the sequence yet. She was the initial caller, so make assumptions off that.
And after he shot the three officers, do you have any idea of the length of time from when that occurred to when he his life almost?
Less than an hour.
Do you have any idea what he was doing in that?
He was fleeing the scene, so when officers were returning fire, he fled out the back of the residence and started moving south towards where he was eventually found.
Was anyone else, the woman or the man who are deceased, were they armed as well?
They were not.
They were not.
Did your officers injure the shooter?
That's, Texas Rangers will investigate that and be able to determine the cause of his death and whether it relates to any of the officer-involved shots.
You said a lot of agencies responded. Were your officers the only ones who fired? Were there other agencies who showed up?
We were the
first?
only ones that fired,
Okay.
but other agencies were on scene. As I said, Richland Hills PD was on scene and transported 2 of our officers to the hospital.
Even though obviously any scenario can happen on any call, that's happened many times. Can you talk about this, how you process something like so many of your officers in a small department being injured? What's going, how are you handling that?
So it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the help from all the neighboring agencies, from setting on the officers at the hospital, making sure the families and the officers have everything that they need so they can concentrate on the recovery of their husband, their spouse, their parents, to setting on their house to make sure everything was taken care of, any needs that the other family members need is taken care of. And then also is trying to navigate through the officers that were, like City Manager Phelps said, we're like a family, so everybody knows each other. So there was a lot of, almost all Haltom City officers were on scene, so they were affected mentally some way. So navigating through that post this is going to be the priority.
Do we know if he was firing from within the house, or did he step outside, or both?
That'll be, when the Texas Rangers complete their investigation, they'll be able to do all that.
And
Did the suspect have any other criminal history?
We don't know. Once we do that, we release the scene to the Texas Rangers, so all we do is process the crime scene, they conduct the investigation.
to get to that second scene where he shot himself, how did he get there? I mean, just you go back out the house because your officers were, I'm assuming, in front of home.
Correct. Yes, sir. They just jumped the fence and then started navigating through yards, and whether it be the rear of the yard or the front of the yard, he navigated down those roads to where he ended up in.
Did he fire again at any point? Like, was he shooting into other homes, or was he just?
No, not once he fled. We didn't find any indications that he fired once he fled the house.
Had you guys made any calls to service to that house before this incident?
I don't know. I had to get back with you. Did y'all? I think there had been a couple, but nothing severe in nature.
And then the other thing too, we heard from neighbors, a lot of people thought this, was fireworks at the beginning, and it turns into a very serious situation when your officers show up. Is there anything you wanted to share just about, I guess the risks that your officers face, every day, and how this situation turned from what could have been fireworks, to something obviously a lot more real?
So, and thank you for bringing that up, because it's crucial how officers respond to certain situations. So, you get complaints about how officers are robots, or they treat everybody like they're going to get shot at or something. This is a prime example. This was an ambush situation. So if they wouldn't have been prepared, this situation could have turned out a lot worse. There could have been several officers deceased over not being able to respond correctly. So, they responded as they trained, and that was crucial in the success of this.
How important is a neighbor call to 911 to let your officers know what they're walking into?
Oh, it's crucial. It's crucial to provide, accurate information to dispatch, and then dispatch providing that information to the officers responding, because as they're responding, depending on the location of the officer when they initially respond, they may only have seconds before they're on scene. So that quick information, accurate information is crucial.
I understand the Texas Rangers are leading the investigation, but also had a report that a couple hours before the actual shooting started, a local veteran had ammunition, guns, and stuff stolen from his vehicle. Is that believed to be what the?
No, that's not.
Completely separate?
That was way up north, and it was not ammunition or weapons. That was not a factual
I just wanted to
report.
verify.
Yeah,
that.
it was a military uniform and stuff of that nature. And that was on the way northwest part of the town, up by Beach and Western Center.
The location where the suspect was found, is that a residence or business or what?
It's a residence. Everything occurred in a residential neighborhood.
Do you have any idea the gun was illegally owned by the shooter?
ATF and the Texas Rangers working hand in hand to make sure that it was a legally owned gun and legally, able to be legally owned.
And
It was a fully automatic, semi-automatic.
It was 2 weapons, correct? 1 handgun, 1 rifle.
Correct.
And you know the to make of those?
I do not offhand. Is that it?
The fact that the victim or the shooter was a self-inflicted gun wound, did you come to that conclusion? The Rangers?
So there was there was no officers around. He was inside of a perimeter. We located him. We had a call come in. We verified the location by helicopter. Nobody was around, and then eventually moved in with officers, a security team to the officers to verify. The medical examiner will definitely determine the cause of death at that point.
Did the shooter live at either house, the one where it started out or the one where it ended?
The only tie to the one was the initial house, initial residence.
Some of the video that we obtained showed that he was had a belt with, he was loaded down with everything. It looked like he was ready to see officers approach them. Can you just talk about being prepared?
I
for
saw the
that?
exact same thing you saw. And the key is in a neighborhood, the ring cameras and all that, the notification system that we had in place for people to shelter in place began to garner a lot of data that we needed to track the individual. And it goes back to the citizen question. If you see something, say something, call us as soon as you see it, and we'll get there, because you never know, something might seem little, and it turns out to something very big.
Do you know if you had any interaction with neighbors before this occurred on yesterday?
I spoke with one neighbor, and the neighbor said they did. They didn't go into detail. I forwarded them their contact information to the Texas Rangers so they could handle that.
How many houses total were affected by this shootout, whether it be from the officers or the suspect shooting?
They were still working the crime scene at almost 1 o'clock this afternoon, so I don't have the exact number. I just know there was a lot of rounds fired and a lot of houses struck. And personal property, there's vehicles struck as well.
Could have venture guess dozens, hundreds, thousands.
Easily hundreds.
All right, so at this time, we're going to cut off the questioning and get this video playing. Do you have anything else you want to add, sir?
No. How do y'all want to do the mic, or are y'all good with just sending it electronically? You want to watch it and then send it electronically? Okay.
I can slide that over here.
Yeah, that'll work. Here's this one on top.
Push that one right there.
Yeah, that one. You did? Yeah, that one switch.
Where's the speaker at?
This is here.
You already cut that? Oh, you got it. Everybody good?
Let's start with those. The officers are going to be coming from the right. You can see them walking up behind the white car on the right.
I'm on the floor, dude. It's in the house. Sam. I'm on the floor. Where's going on here? Hey, get in the car.
Do they need to replay it? You want one more? Get it one more time.
I'm on the floor, dude. It's in the house. Sam. I'm on the floor. Where's going on here? Hey, get in the car.
Thanks, y'all. Got anything else? We'll send the pictures out digitally and a copy of this video as well. And just keep in mind that that video is just that clip of that happened. It's not before and it's not the stuff that occurred after. It was just a little clip that happened when the officers got there initially and they got injured.
Respect to the camera, that's the house where the shooting is coming from.
No, this camera was a house to the west.
Okay, so it's coming from the one room.
Yeah, they were right to the right.
So the officers in the video, the ones that first responded to the call?
Yes, they were the ones that got injured. And then they saw the two that were running up to the house where initially they were responding units that showed up as the shooting was occurring.
Do you know which Richland Hills officer?
I do.
Okay, will that be police or?
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, again, it goes back to that middle, making sure everybody's taken care of. I want to make sure that they have things in place and set up before they start getting bombarded with information. Yes.